So, hello and welcome once again to Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue. I'm Dan, Dr. Dan Famini, the veterinarian for the facility. And so today we're going to be exploring several things. While we're waiting for the crowd to arrive, just a quick update what's been going on at the center. This week we didn't have as many intakes as usual, which is fine. We had 10 new animals come in. And so that brings our total number of animals in care right now up to 139. So still definitely in the busy swing of spring-summer season. And so that's total numbers, about pretty typical for this time of year. As always, if you guys have questions along the way, please do type them in and ask them. Also, if there's some major AV issue, like you can't hear, please let me know so that we can go ahead and try to correct that as we go along. And so, how are we doing right now, Natalie?
People are just saying hello and good morning and all that.
Excellent.
I think people can hear.
Okay. And so today we're going to start off talking about some owls and showing you in our Raptor Recovery Center. From there, we're going to head across the facility over to where we have our barn owl boxes, and then at the end we'll hop back into the hospital and take a look at the critters in that more intensive care. We've got a lot of animals growing and maturing, a lot of animals moving towards outside enclosures and release. So a lot of shifting and changing here at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue. So what we're in right now is the hallway of our Raptor Recovery Center. And so along each side we have 9 different mews or small enclosures that raptors can, or other birds are housed in. Every once in a while, because this is a more quiet, isolated spot, we'll use this for other animals that are more high stress as well. But let's go ahead and take a look inside one of these enclosures. And so on the outside we have our number. We do use a 4-letter code, an abbreviation that's standardized in the avian rehab world to indicate what species are on site. Of course, it's not our main record keeping, but we want to make sure that before anyone heads into a spot, they know who's there. And these do have a little peek window underneath each one. And so we do have a couple different latches over each door. You'll notice the ground here is gravel. There's excellent drainage, allows us to keep things nice and clean. And for our birds, our avians, it's a good option. And so there's no one in this particular spot right now. I'm just going to show you what they look like on the inside before we take a peek at some of the ones with some of our rehabilitating birds within. So we have our different perches, and so we can adjust these. We can change the diameter of the width. We can change the height as need be. We do have other smaller perching spots to try to give different heights as these animals grow and mature. We always have water access in each one. And we want to make sure that they have access to feel the wind, to experience the elements, but they're protected from them. And so this slat system is commonly used in the rehab world. Also, if you look towards the sides here, all of these mews, all of these different chambers, there are doors between each and all of them, so we can expand as an animal gradually gains in strength and is ready to start doing little hops, little short flights. We can give them a bigger and bigger area, help them gain that strength until eventually they're ready for their large outside flight or return to the wild. And so most of the raptors here, of course, are going to be carnivores, so we are going to feed them usually rodents or other mice. Sometimes we'll have other birds that are in here as well. However, there are our sister organizations that take care of most of the songbirds and a lot of the other avian, especially the specialty things like the water birds, that we transfer those to another facility, or the hummingbirds. But here at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue, we'll deal with raptors, we'll deal with some corvids, some crows and jays, and things like our band-tailed pigeon. We actually do have a native pigeon, as well as the domestic type pigeons that you'll find. And so we're just going to peek through the window at a couple of these enclosures before we focus on the one with owls themselves. And so over here in our luxury suites, in the biggest spots, we do have a turkey vulture. So we have a couple turkey vultures on site right now. And so now you can just peek through the window in there. And so it probably there you go. And so turkey vultures are, of course, a very important member of our local ecosystem, critical scavengers, keeping all that detritus from building up. Of course, their behavior lends them being near, because so many animals are hit by cars, their behavior of scavenging can put them in harm's way. And so we do have a couple turkey vultures. Turkey vultures are relatively stressy, so we're not going to go into the enclosure right now. One of their main responses when stressed, and one of the first things they'll do is regurgitate. And because they've been eating often spoiled prey, they'll just regurgitate that fetid material right towards you. But we don't want him to lose any nutrition. We want him to continue to heal. So we'll go ahead and keep with that. And so right now, in terms of owls on the site, we have 3 great horned owl fledglings, and we have those 2 barn owl chicks that you guys saw last week. And so these great horned owl fledglings, they are truly fledglings. They have still some fluff on them, they do have good full feathers. So these ones were found down near nesting sites, and so that can be part of the normal fledgling process, where they get down and every once in a while they'll need some help getting up. When a bird in that situation comes to us at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue, we'll take a good health assessment of them, make sure there isn't any injuries of concern, making sure that they are healthy, stable individuals, and then if that is the case, we'll usually return them to the nest. And that will be the outcome for the 3 we have here. We got they're from a couple different sites across the county. And so great horned owls, they are going to be kind of the stereotypical owl with the big eyes, unlike the barn owls, a little bit smaller eyes. Their behavior, even as fledglings, whenever they're threatened, they try to look big, so they might puff up. Sometimes they'll put their wings out, and they will clack at you. And so they'll take their beak and go, and try to do a nice clicking sound to show off how big and impressive they are. The main weapon of owls is going to be their talons. That's how they grab a lot of their prey. And so great horned owls are the biggest of the owls in our area. And so we'll take a look at a few of these fledglings. So now I'll let you peek the phone in, and if these guys seem stable enough, I'll follow in as well. And so you can see they are gaining in flight. There's that clacking I was mentioning. There's that spreading of the wings, try to look nice and big and impressive. And so these guys, you can see they still have some fluff on them, but they do have good developing feathers. And so, there's how they spread those wings. So they'll put that wing out behind it, they'll spread it out, just trying to look as huge as possible. And so there's a question that I see about owl boxes. And so owl boxes work really well for barn owls. However, they're not usually as productive for great horned owls. And so every owl has their unique needs in terms of their housing. And we'll talk quite in significant detail about owl boxes and barn owls when we head on over to that part of the facility. And so there is actually 3 owls up here. We do have our one more relaxed fellow up towards the top looking down at us. And so, most birds are going to be most comfortable when they're above the other animals around. And so that one that's up high, it's not surprising that he's much more calmer in the context of us taking a peek at them. And so owls, they do have decent eyesight. Of course, they do have very excellent hearing as well. And so owls, their feathers have a special fringe on them so that when they fly, they often can be silent at night. So they can be those very stealth predators. And every once in a while, it is not uncommon because of those big eyes. Those big eyes are prone towards injury. And so sometimes we'll have owls come in with eye issues, and in some situations it will be completely compromised eyes. And so if there is one eye that's still working and the other eye is completely compromised, sometimes as the veterinarian for the site, if that eye is painful, if that eye is not functional for that owl, we will remove one eye, do an enucleation, and then we'll of course prey test the animal. But almost every owl does just fine with one eye. Now their ears are very unique. Their ears are actually offset. So they don't have an outer ear, they don't have a fleshy ear like we do, but with the opening to their ears, one is higher on the head and the other is lower. So that when they're flying and their whole body is vertical, the one that's higher is going to be able to hear not just towards what side, towards the left, but also it will hear what is in front. And then the lower right ear can isolate sounds, not only is it coming from the right, but also is it coming from behind them. And so with that offset opening to those ears, they can detect sounds not just left and right, but also front and back. So as they're hunting and they hear that rustling, they're able to be quite precise with just hearing alone. There's a question about what happened to these owls. So I mentioned a little bit earlier, these are fledglings that came from their nests and could not return to them. Luckily, after our full assessment of these individuals, they are in good health otherwise, so they are going to be returned to their nesting site. And so we just give them usually 1 or 2 days to wait for make sure any occult issues emerge, and if not, we try to arrange for them to return. And so again, these are great horned owls. We actually do have quite a few different species of owls in Sonoma County, and so we'll talk about some of those species as we walk across the center towards the owl boxes.
Somebody asked how big will they get?
So in terms of overall, so birds are exceptionally light compared to their size, so they're typically only going to be a few pounds. In terms of their overall heft, and in terms of the overall, scope of their size, these guys are about, they're pretty close to their full height. They'll still gain another 20% or so. And so they're going to be most of the height, but they still have to flesh out quite a bit. They actually look bigger and fluffier than the adults just because of that more juvenile plumage. All right, so that was the clacking and intimidation of the great horned owls. And so great horned owls, the largest owls of our area. As we head out of our Raptor Recovery Center, we'll just take a quick peek. There's a couple birds in here that are relatively distressed, so we'll let them be. But we'll see if we can take a quick glance at the white-tailed kite. And so kites are a bird that are going to be found around Sonoma County. They're going to be one of those ones that hover in the air, and then when they see something, go down and grab it. They are a little bit higher strung, so we'll see. Now they can come on closer. See if we can visualize. There it is over on that side. Over to your left. That is our white-tailed kite. And so, well, we don't want to stress them out any further. We'll leave them at that. And so like I said, we have a couple turkey vultures on site. We have some pigeons. We have some a couple species of owls. It is the most common raptors we have coming in are going to be our hawks, especially our red-tailed and red-shouldered hawks. But we do get a big spectrum. And so we're just going to stroll all the way across the center as we will. I'm just going to mention some of the different kinds of owls we have here in Sonoma County. And so my favorite of the owls that we get in is actually called the Western Screech Owl. And so Western Screech Owls are a small owl. They're only about the size of my fist, only about yay tall. And that is their full adult size. And so Western Screech Owls, they're going to be hanging out in usually the crevices of old growth oak and other similar trees. And so they're going to be coming out at night, hunting on those small rodents. And so they are going to be one that you may hear. They're definitely found throughout the county. That's not the smallest owl that you may have. There is something called a pygmy owl, and we've had a couple come through here through the center over the years. Other kinds of owls that we've gotten on occasion, sometimes from Sonoma County, sometimes from neighboring counties. There's saw-whet owls, there's small-eared owls, and there's even been a couple spotted owls that came in through Marin County. So there's actually quite a diversity of owls. Now the owls you're going to most likely to encounter are probably going to be our barn owls. And so barn owls have a different look. They don't have as big eyes as the other owls. They still are going to consume a large number of rodents. Barn owls are going to be hanging out, as the name implies, unstructured, and they tend to like big open field spaces where they can find plenty of rodents. As opposed to the great horned owls. The great horned owls are going to be actually in wooded areas. And there's actually a great horned owl nest, not directly under us, but in this eucalyptus grove that is a part of our facility. And those two owls, the great horned owls and the barn owls, they do not get along. In fact, one of the primary predators of our great horned owls, of our barn owls, are the great horned owls. The great horns will actually predate the barn owls. And so when you design an owl box, it has to be made so that it's for the correct species. If you set it up so some of the predators of that animal can come around, that could have a catastrophic result. And so we do have one specific design that we use for our owl boxes. And so we've been heading through the rehab area, and then we're going to just end up making our way past some of the enclosures from our education area to where we have our owl box display. So I'll show you exactly the kinds of features that we want to see for a successful owl box. And so the juveniles on those barn owls, they'll eat 6, 8, sometimes even 10 mice a night. And so if you have one great horn, well, that's true for the great horns. It's also going to be true for the barn owls. So if you have a barn owl mother that has, say, 5 chicks, those two parents are going to be hunting dozens and dozens of rodents every night for their offspring. And so they really can be one of the most potent rodent control as opposed to a cat that will catch a couple, or it has other issues in terms of the native animals they'll catch, or a snake that'll catch one a week. And so owls are one of the best natural rodent control options. And so because of that, there's a lot of agricultural facilities, especially vineyards, that will have owl boxes on site to try to promote those barn owls and have those barn owls do a lot of their rodent control for them. And so here at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue, we actually have an entire barn owl maintenance program where for a fee, we'll install a box on your facility, and then if you want, we can also come out and monitor it. So every spring we would come out and document, let you know what the use of that box is, and every fall go out and do a clean out so that it's ready for the next season. And so we have a very precisely designed box that we're very happy with. And so we have a display where I'll show you the features of the boxes that we find most successful. As of this time, we've installed several hundred boxes around the county, and we monitor a couple hundred each and every season. And so with that, it's a large number of boxes. And so we're now partnering with some of the researchers at Humboldt State and at UC Davis to try to learn more about owls, about what kind of box features and box habitat is the most successful, about things like what are the baseline rodenticide levels, and a lot of our owls, winded from backwards. And so we're very fortunate to have that option to try to help contribute towards the science of the natural species around us, because there's so much in wildlife which is guesswork, so much that's just anecdotal and people's impressions. And the only way to really know something is to be able to dive deep down and get that broad numbers in studies to figure it out. And so we're happy to contribute towards that. So for our barn owl maintenance program, for our barn owl boxes, this is what our boxes look like. And so in terms of the height of the pole, we find this height to be functional. We find this height to give us good occupancy. Some of the studies out of Europe imply it a little bit higher. However, if you go any higher than that, then the equipment needed to install and maintain those boxes is a whole different caliber. And so we find this an excellent compromise between getting good use, getting good function, and accessibility, and being able to be realistic in terms of maintaining. And so some people are surprised when they see how small the hole that we want to see on these barn owl boxes is. But remember, we want this to be the right size for a barn owl to fly in and out, but not for something like a great horned owl, or heaven forbid, something like a raccoon or a fox to climb up into. Remember, foxes can climb. Those gray foxes we focused on a couple weeks ago, are excellent climbers. And if you have too generous an opening to your barn owl box, they're gonna fly right in. Another thing that you want to avoid is having any perch sticking out from here. You don't want to have any ledge or any perch. If you do, you're going to promote some of the other species that may prey on that barn owl, or more commonly prey on the chicks when they're in that barn owl. You don't want to encourage those hawks or those great horns to get inside there. We do want to have a little bit of grip for those owls as they do land to pop in. But this is the extent that they need. They don't need a ledge, they don't need a perch. You can see we have this funny little spacing here where we have some boards, we have both on the top and both on the back, that's separating, you got a couple inches separation between the box and that board. That's an extra protection against the elements, so that way it turns on, you have to be careful on how you orient it, but that way you're going to keep it from getting too hot. You're going to keep that a bit more protected by just having that space. Air is actually a good insulator. Speaking of air and insulation, we do have ventilation holes. We have some holes plugged in on two sides here. You don't want it too open and airy, then it won't be a nice nook, a nice home for that barn owl, but you do want to have some. In addition to the main access for the owl, you want to make sure that you have your access to be able to do that clean out. So at the end of the breeding season, to be able to make sure it's set up for those owls the next time around. And so these are the kind of owl boxes we use. You'll see all sorts of things out there. You'll see even all sorts of things marketed commercially. Some of them are wise, smart designs. Some of them are not. And so this has been a design that we're very, very happy with. All right, what kind of questions have come in?
Somebody asked, how much does it cost to get an owl box from us?
Gotcha. So I'll have to actually double check on those numbers. You don't know off the top of your head, Natalie, do you?
I believe it's $110 for the service call out there, and then $450 for the box installed.
The box, that counts the box and the installation.
Yeah, that's box and installation.
And so yeah, so that's the ballpark. And so and then whether we just install it and let it be, and when we do come out, we will help consult and make sure, hey, this is a good, smart place for the box. A lot of people want a box, but they just don't have the right habitat.
Yeah.
And then we'll just let you know that this is just not a smart location. If it is a smart location, we'll say, oh great, this is a good place to put one. They're likelihood of having success. In fact, you could even have these couple other boxes and have a good chance of success. And so part of that is to lend your expertise. We've been doing this program, oh, and actually, here's my official shirt. We've been doing that program for a few years now, and so really happy with how it's coming together.
And then somebody asked, is it too late to install one now?
So it's never too late to install one. It's has a high chance of being too late to get chicks this year. A lot of the barn owls have already laid their eggs, and we are seeing, as you can see, fledglings and hatchlings. In terms of, however, as those fledglings get bigger, there is going to be dispersal. And so in terms of use of a box, getting an individual to use that box and headquarter in that box, that's still very realistic this time of year. But in terms of, you just have to wait till the next year to most predictably have a chance at getting chicks in there. And so we're going to head on in to the hospital area from here. And so as last time, we're going to hustle on through the kitchen and hallway till we get into the hospital clinic. And for those of you who weren't there in the beginning, we have had another 10 or so animals come in this last week. Not a huge week for intake, but we still have a huge week for overall animals on site. So we are up to 139 animals total in care. And so the opossums do remain the most numerous of the species we have, but the diversity of what's coming in does continue to expand. And so a lot of the juveniles that you guys saw the weeks before have been successfully maturing. Today, we actually don't have anyone in those incubators. A lot of them have graduated out into our more external enclosures. And so it looks like they're examining an animal right now. So we're going to be very quiet as we swing around so we don't stress out that individual. And so that was Katie and Danielle, two of our lead animal health staff, our registered veterinary technician. And so you can hear those barn owls. And so it looks like they're examining yet another turkey vulture that's come into the center. And so we'll wait and probably know that individual's story by the time we live stream again next week. Okay, so let's talk about barn owls for a moment. So while those great horned owls, those big, burly great horned owls, they will get big, they'll fluff up, they have those giant eyes, and they'll plaque at you. Barn owls have a very unique vocalization, which you can hear behind you. They have more of a hiss. So if you hear something hooting, it's probably a different kind of owl. And so these guys, they'll still try to get spread out and get big, but instead of that like this turkey or peacock type display they do with their wings, these guys will kind of hunker the wings out and kind of weave from side to side, doing that hiss, even when they're this young, this juvenile. So these particular individuals are the same ones you saw last week. They were found down out in front of the box, but these are not fledglings. These guys are too young, and so it's very, very uncommon for those ones to be outside a box. Now, that was not a recent box. That was a bit more of a vintage box that had been on someone's property for over a decade. And so the opening was a bit big, there was a perch and a ledge there, and we know for a fact now that there is no adults coming there, because they put a wildlife camera out to watch afterwards, and there's been no owls coming for over a week now. So something probably happened to that mom. And so they weren't being fed, and so they tried to search for food, and they came out, even though they were this tiny, no feather size. And they were a bit dehydrated and a decreased muscle mass when they came out. They're doing great. They've gone from 6 to 8 mice a night in terms of what they're consuming. And at this point, they're now plump and stable enough that we're going to search for a new home for them. Now, because we manage all these hundreds of boxes, we can try to find another barn owl out there with chicks about the same age, and they can actually put them with the foster mom. Now, fostering something new, we've only been testing it just a handful a year the last couple of years, but so far, those moms out there, as long as it's not a box that has too many chicks to begin with, they have been fantastic foster moms taking care of those chicks. And so in the next couple of days, we'll be searching for new placement for these guys now that they're so stable. And so let's go ahead and now we can go down and focus and take a peek. And so remember those great horns, how they do that peacock stance. These guys will do more of a weave. still have those talons that they're trying to display and impress us with. And then, of course, that very unique, intimidating hiss. And so they've actually developed quite a bit in the last week. Those wing feathers are so much more in. These guys came in a week and a half, or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. And at that point, they really didn't have any meaningful wing feathers at all. So growing by leaps and bounds.
Somebody asked if the do male owls help with raising the owlets?
So sometimes they do. Sometimes they're bringing rodents over to there. And so what makes the difference when they do, when they don't, I don't have exact understanding on that, but there has been occasions in which they do. And so any other quick questions before we take a peek at some other? So I'll let you guys bring those questions on in. We're just gonna take a peek at the other folks who are in the hospital right now. And so we got striped skunk, Virginia opossums, and of course those otters. So let's see if anyone wants to be seen today. Oh, no, not you. Okay. Let's see. Oh, you can see we're using all that nice pine, so thanks for the redwood and all those conifer branches. Thanks to those of you who donated. We do appreciate it. We do have very sleepy opossum down back in that hiding spot, and so not feeling like coming out very well. And so here at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue, we're never going to force an animal to do something. We're just here to help them rehabilitate. Let's see if our bigger opossum wants to be seen. There we are. Okay, so this individual, so again, we haven't completely cleaned the cage, but she's doing much better. She had a number of different wounds on her legs that are healing up well. So we'll go ahead and back out of that. Ooh. And then let's go ahead and take a peek at who will probably be the focus of the live stream next week. Let's go ahead and catch up with our two North American river otters who are here. Last time you guys saw them, these river otters were both suckling themselves in unhealthy ways, and so they had those big cones on. The female has matured to the point that she's no longer doing that. The male still is sometimes. So one of them has the cone and one of them does not. And so I'll let you go ahead and be in front, Allie, so we can see. Hey guys. And so we've moved them out of the incubator into this bigger enclosure. They often have free run of this whole area. Let's see. Nope. Nope. They must be right behind us. Oh. All right, so you want to get down nice and low. They're just in the hide. Hi guys. How you doing? There are two wiggly otter behinds. And so these two river otters, you can see those eyes are opening now. Oh, excellent. And so these guys are maturing. They're still on the bottle. They still need a lot of care. As they continue to mature, they will end up being moved to the outside enclosure, eventually to our aquatic mammal enclosure, as they need less handling, less care, so they can appropriately wild up for their return to the greater world around. As of right now, you can hear they still have those little infant chirps. And so we'll talk all about our North American river otters in our live stream next week. And so while we watch these otters, I'm just going to say thank you guys, each and every one of you, for joining us today for our live stream today at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue. Every week brings new challenges, interesting cases, fascinating aspects of the native world around us, and I thank you guys so much for joining us. Our focus will be talking about otters next week, but we'll also catch up on whatever is happening, whatever animals are coming in here at Sonoma County Wildlife Rescue. Stay safe, everyone, and have a great week.